So this is part 3 in the continuation of me sharing things that I'm realizing about myself, facts that I'm finding out about my origination, my adoption. And I share this because it's just a way for me to get it out. I have, since I was a child, I have to get things out or I feel like I'm literally going to spontaneously combust. There's things about me that I've always had to wrap my head around things, and I will just go. My mind will go and go and go and go till I figure out why things are happening and why something happened or why somebody's doing this, and I'll go to them and ask them. It drives people crazy. You can ask my husband. Drives him crazy, and that's just who I am. And I've realized now that I do that because I never was explained anything as a child, and I'm just one of those logical people. I have to understand. I'm one of those people that if you came to me and just gave me something vague and thought you were just going to go over my head and I was going to basically agree with you, you picked the wrong person, because I'm asking you lots and lots of questions and I will find out every detail if you're giving me the truth or not, because I'm not just going to go off of one fact or your opinion. I'm going to go off of observations and questions that I ask up. And I don't feel bad for doing that because that's who I am, and that's how I've survived on my own since I left home at 15. If I just trusted everybody, I would have been in bigger trouble than I already was. And there's things about me that have drove myself crazy and other people crazy because I'm all over the place. I'm sure if you've watched any of my videos, gotten on any of my team calls, you're like, whoa, she's all over the place. Special people can actually follow me, but now I realize that that's not a curse. That's actually a good thing because I'm able to switch gears and think about every aspect, and that's helped me. I shared this because I want to give people hope. There's always a point to what I say because I really think deeply and my mind moves so fast. I had these major aha moments last night, so I'm trying to verbalize it just to get it out, because when I'm talking it makes a little more sense and I hope that it can help people. And I really want to share with you how I've gotten to be this person. It has been because I am open about what I am going through and thinking. And when I'm, like I said, when I verbalize stuff or type it out on Facebook or on my blog, as I'm thinking and the thoughts are flowing and it's coming out of my mouth, or, I'm typing, I realize things that I never realized. And maybe they were always there, but I wasn't able to process it or understand it or deal with it in a more healthy manner. And I feel that I have gotten to this point where I can withstand these things and have a deeper understanding and really look at things and use it to my benefit to be a better person because of personal development. And there is a huge power of healing whenever you talk to people, when you surround yourself with other people, when you get involved, when you share things about yourself. You no longer feel alone. They help you become healed. So having a support system for what I do in coaching and in my line of work is we push the power of support in a challenge group through health and fitness, and we push personal development because those things help you grow along the way. And I realized the other day that why I guess personal development is so great for me, because one thing that Danny Johnston always said is that so many people neglect their mind. They stop feeding their mind. They're really focused on their nutrition and their fitness level for their physical being, but they don't focus on their mind, that's what gets us through. And I knew that this was important. I encouraged it to everybody on my team, but I realized the other day that I left home at 15. I stopped school. I graduated at 16. I went to college for a couple months. That was the last of me feeding my brain. I didn't read a book. I think in 2007, I read the Twilight series. Right? I actually used my mind to actually read, but I wasn't actually doing anything to challenge myself. No wonder I just stayed where I was. I was so private and so locked up, so bitter, so angry, didn't have anyone to talk to. Nobody there that was really positive. People who just showed up and hung out with me and partied, and that was it. It wasn't deep relationships. I was a good friend because I was thoughtful. I always watched people's kids and helped them out, was always at their beck and call, and was always the one to go out and have fun partying, but I didn't really have anybody who really wanted to make me better. I didn't have anybody who was that close to me that knew that there was anything wrong with me to want to help me. And so everything through Beachbody led up to this. I guess it's so hard to verbalize everything that I realized last night. My mind just moves all over the place. I am one of those people that I haven't slept hardly at all since Friday because once I get something in my mind, I just have to fix it. And a lot, it drives people crazy because I can't not say something that is bothering me. And most people hold it all in and they don't want to hear it and they see it as being confrontational. But growing up, like I said, I was never allowed to have an opinion. I was never allowed to voice my opinion. It was like, you do this. We're getting up. We're going to church. We're going there. You have to dress this way. You're going to do this. Don't talk to this person. Blah, blah, blah. You cut your hair this way. Blah, blah, blah. And so I never got to talk about how I feel. And once I finally, realized that I could when I left home, I had such a hard time trying to figure out my emotions. And then after I became a mom, I was trying to figure out if these were legit emotions or just the way that I was trained to feel, or because I was such a people pleaser, because I was never allowed to have an opinion, that like I was just doing whatever the person I was around wanted because I thought that they'd like me and accept me and love me more. So it's taken a long time, and personal development and really pouring myself into helping other people has done just what the saying says, that to get what you want, you have to help other people fulfill their dreams, and everything will happen. And it is true. When I focus on other people, I've had major aha moments. But I now understand why I can't hold my feelings inside, because I did that for too long and I refused to do it. And when I joined all these adoptee groups that went from 1 to 9 and 5, I did what people do who join my fitness and health challenge groups. I was like, oh God, I'm just going to watch, and ask a little question here and there. And, I remember in the first group, I said something about, is anybody, I don't remember, something about Korean adoption. And he was always like, well, tell me your story. And then I was like, I never responded. And, I really understand how people feel when I put them in my health and fitness challenge groups. He was like, oh God, I don't want to talk about it. And, through that, I found a person who really, reached out to me, and she pointed me in the right direction. She pointed me to this guy named Joe Saul that said, I signed up for his thing, and he sent me this email back and all this information about how I could reach him to find my trying to find more about my birth story, my birth parents or something. And then he was talking about this retreat that you could go to, and I laughed. I'm like, who goes to an adoption retreat? And then I was like, oh God, no. So then she pointed me on to another friend. She said, she's adopted 2 girls. You should do, if you've done this 23andMe kit. I'm like, what is the 23andMe kit? And I talked about it in the last video. And so I talked to this lady. She went, on and on, telling me all this stuff, and really cared about me. And I was shocked because, I guess I've been in my own Beachbody world, and I thought that there were only people out there that were uber supportive and cared what were, Beachbody. That's my ignorance. But, this lady said, told me what the 23andMe kit was like, it's this DNA thing, it's off of saliva, and you find out your heritage, and then you wait for your results. And, I went to the website. I didn't even read up about it. I just bought it. It was $99. I just hit send. I didn't even look and see if there's a guarantee or any reviews of legitimacy. And I just did it because I don't know. And that's the thing that, one thing I want to tell coaches, if a coach is watching this, is that, people are like, I can't sell Shakeology, I can't sell 21 Day Fix. And I see coaches out there posting these graphics and all these things, like fancy graphics, or the graphics that come from Beachbody about 21 Day Fix, and then copy and paste the verbiage about 21 Day Fix's, portion controlled program with 7 containers, and all just these like logistic, legal jargon type things. And they're like, why can't I sell it? Why is anybody going to me? Because word of mouth helps. When you feel that somebody is confident about what it is and they say, you need to do this, I did this, I got it, results back, boom. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to go do the research. They don't want to hear all this, salesy stuff. They just want to go off of your personal feelings. So if you're a coach out there, take this story as proof that word of mouth is so much stronger than facts. People sell things, not facts. There's facts all over the place. People just want to. So I took this stranger's advice after like 2 days of talking to her, and the lady Mary, who referred me to her to talk to her, word, and just bought it, and it still sits here. I haven't gotten myself to the point where I can send it off, but I have it, and I spent $99 without doing any research. That is the power of word of mouth. That is the power of feeling confident about something and wanting something. So this, we continue on the stories that, this lady that I was referred to, Greta went and told me about a Korean adoptee group. So I got in there, and then over the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I am actually in now 4 Korean adoptee groups. And then when I got there, I did what probably people do when they join my fitness, accountability groups. I was scrolling through and I'm seeing all this stuff. There's like all this like Korean adoptee lingo. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, I feel, people were talking about what, their journey is. People, to me, seem like, oh my God, these people are like really in touch with their Asian side. And they're some of them are in Korea. Some of them have found cousins and even found their birth parents. And, I felt like a fish out of water. I was like, oh my God, like I don't even know what they're talking about. And then I was like, oh Jesus, like the way I felt was like, here I am, a Korean adoptee, somebody who's Korean, and I just want to be white, and I don't know anything that they're talking about. I don't know their lingo. I don't know their abbreviations. I'm so far in my journey. Like I felt so stupid, and I'm like, great, I don't even fit in with these people now, and it sucked. But then I was like just scouring things right and left because I was just trying to read. And then I started asking little questions here and there, and I got this outpouring of support, just like I see that the people who are in my fitness challenge groups, they put their little toe out of their comfort zone, they say something, and other people were like, me too. And there's this comfort when you're like, oh, somebody gets me, They may not get anything about me, but they may get just one thing, and people want to feel connected. It's in our blood, and when you're somebody like me who never felt connected, you want to. And, some of these people were like, really proud that they were Asian. I'm like, why do I feel embarrassed that I'm Korean? I've always hated being me. And like people are like, well, you're so pretty and da da da. And I'm like, but I don't feel pretty. Like I know that I'm not ugly. I'm not saying that in a vain way, but I know I'm not ugly. But I don't feel pretty. And I've thought about it then. And somebody posted in the group the other day, like, do you think that men or women get more racial slurs and face racism, being Korean? And everybody was posting, and I put my 2 cents in, and, I was thinking, like, I don't remember. I remember me and, the girls, the line of girls who were half Korean. They were raised by, a Caucasian father, and their mom was Korean, and she actually came from Korea, so they really actually knew about their Korean roots. And I remember them getting made fun of a little bit in school. I really got made fun of, I guess because I had such low self-esteem that I gave people a reaction that they wanted. I was already a weirdo. I had old parents, so my mom always came and helped out in class. And we were Jehovah's Witnesses, so I was knocking on fellow classmates' doors at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, which was just absolutely devastating. But I'm like, I don't remember anybody ever making fun of, the two, Cody or Jesse. I don't remember. Maybe they did. But then I was thinking that growing up, I knew that I was Korean because I was told I was Korean. There's no way my parents could lie to me. But we didn't talk about it. It was like, it was a bad thing. So it was not like cool to find out about my heritage. So it was like, it was a bad thing. And then growing up, I was been made fun of my whole entire life. I've been called slant-eyed, chinky. I was called a nigger one time in 3rd grade. I remember exactly who it was. Nick Hall came out of the bathroom. He was a year older than me. He's like, are you a nigger? And I mean, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't grow up in like in a racist household, and we didn't have any black people in our town. So I was like, I asked my grandpa, and he told me, and I realized I wasn't, but I had such low self-esteem. And, and then whenever I grew up and, left home and started having friends, people always made fun of me. They say, like, joking, and I've always said, oh, it doesn't bother me. But I realize now, when I'm in situations, I'm always the first one to make some Asian joke, because it's like, if you lay yourself out there first, it's not as funny, and it's become who I am. If people make jokes, I've heard them all. It's not a big deal, but like I told Ryan, recently, I'm like, it's just so annoying, because like I don't go around with all my white friends always making white jokes, but if you are of any other ethnicity, it just seems like these are always jokes, and it just gets old, especially because like I can't help who I am, and then when I became a teenager, and then even now it's like the whole, oh, there's, an exotic Asian, and, and there's sexual jokes. So it's like, I've never been given like positive reinforcement about being Asian. It was always some derogatory thing, some, derogatory statement, hidden in a joke, or some sexual innuendo that, so it's really like, no, I'm like, okay, now I don't feel bad about how I feel being Asian. So it made me understand that. And so anyways, what I was talking about is that I realized is that when growing up, I only had little small details about my life, and that's all I knew. I didn't think it was right. I didn't think to question it. And now, from talking to some people who've been further into their search and know the steps to go, they're giving me all these steps. And the private investigator, like I said, came and told me, like, you need to look for this and this and this and this. Well, whenever I got my adoption file, which all it was this right here, one little folder. I didn't even look at it, like I said, for months. And then when I did, I just got the information I needed to keep on the track to get my passport and all of that taken care of. So I didn't really look. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna look now. Like, I know what to look for. And so I started going through everything, and I started questioning things. And like I told Ryan, they're like, all I ever knew was that I grew up in this foster home. I was raised by this foster mom. I was really, really sick, they said. And when my parents got me, I was 15 pounds, and I had like a bald spot in the back of my head, and I couldn't sit up. That's all I knew growing up. That I didn't have any reason to doubt that or to question that, and it was like the one thing that I hung on to because it's the only thing I knew. And I started walking in a year and a day. It wasn't until I've had kids that all three of my children were like 15 pounds. They were like 9-pound babies. They were 15 pounds by like 4 to 8 weeks old. And I was like, I would look at them and I'd be like, every one of my kids, I'd be like, this is how big I was at 9.5 months old? And then when my kids started walking, like Haley started walking 8 months old. The other two started walking around 9.5 months old. So I was like, damn, they must have gotten their strength from me that, we all have like crazy calves and, are just curious people. We want to get up and go. But I always thought it was weird. Like, I went from like malnourishment, super sick, teeny tiny baby, and 2.5 months later, I was walking. I'm like, I just, and then I told Ryan that I'm like, I wonder if that's a truth, because that just doesn't make sense, But anyway, I was like, well, whatever. And so I started digging through my, adoption papers. And one thing I pointed out is that there's a lot of things that didn't match up. So I was going through this adoption file, and I was looking more closely. There is no information about the adoption agency. None. Except for, like I said, the little clipping that said, that was given to, me in this folder or whatever. And it basically says that, I don't know where it is. It's in this picture album. This is the only other thing that I have. Like, this is all that I have about me. These are pictures that I have. But it was an ad that was taken out. It says, Korean infant finds home here. A 9-month-old Korean girl has arrived in Lincoln where she will start a new life. She's been adopted by David and Luanna McNinch Jr., who have become parents for the first time and bringing the Korean child into their home. They have named their daughter Mindy Kim. The McNinches flew to Los Angeles last Tuesday to meet their daughter when she arrived at Los Angeles International Airport. They returned the next day to Sacramento Metropolitan Airport, where they were greeted by grandparents and other relatives. Maternal grandparents are Elwood and Vicki Brooks of Lincoln, and paternal grandparents are David and Barbara McNinch of Lincoln. A great-grandmother is Ethel McNinch of Taft, California. The airport greeting party also included the new mother's brother and sister-in-law, Lee and Darla Brooks, and their 3 children, Michelle, Melanie, and Michael of Lincoln. The new mother says Mindy Kim is adjusting well to her new home and new country. After a diet consisting of solely rice cereal and milk, Mindy Kim is now trying applesauce. Mrs. McNinch says it's terrific to be a mother. It's absolutely fantastic after having waited so long, she said. She and her husband lived in Lincoln for the last 9 years. McNinch operates a property maintenance firm. They have been trying to adopt for about 5 years, but U.S. adoption agencies don't have enough children for all the waiting families. 2.5 years ago, the McNinches contacted the Intercounty Adoption Agency of Sacramento, but it wasn't until 6 months ago that word came of the baby ready for adoption. Pictures of the 3-month-old were sent to the McNinches, and they soon began preparing for their new roles as parents. So that was information given to the Lincoln newspaper from my parents. But I have looked, and I looked again yesterday. There's no record of this adoption agency. There's no record in my adoption file. Like, I scoured through here. But then, if you look in here, all there is like all the legal paperwork that they had to do, like every letter that they wrote leading up to adopting me. There was, in here, there is this picture, photocopy of all this is photocopy, so I know that's not the original, like they said, but all the documents said is sent in, and there's even a copy of what they bought their flight to the Los Angeles airport, which doesn't make sense either. Like, they flew down on there's a letter from the Korean Welfare Services saying that I was leaving on the 17th of October. And then they didn't get me to the 20th. So, like, I was telling Ryan, like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, what happened in those 3 days? I mean, I don't know how it happened, but there was that copy of the flight ticket that they purchased. Then in the next thing, there was a thing saying that they had, paid for a hotel room. They checked in on the 20th. They checked out on the 21st at the Ramada Inn. But in there, there's nothing that, like the private investigator was saying, I needed. Where's my passport? Where is, if you saved all this information, where is the paper trail trying to find my passport? There was in this file pictures of the nursery that they had set up. So when I first saw the doctor, Michael Keating, I looked him up. There's still records of him. He dissolved his business because he might be dead now. But like there's record of that, but there's no record. You can't find anything about this adoption agency. It's like it didn't exist. I can't imagine that there would just be no trace when it was an adoption agency. Babies were taken and given to families. There's no tracing of that. There's no records. There's nothing in my file about the adoption agency. Nothing. And then they sealed my records. Why? Like I told Ronald, maybe they just put a fictitious adoption agency there so that I would never find out, or so people couldn't snoop. I don't know. Like if you don't know anything, you just have to form your own opinion. And then I remember my mom said that when I came, I screamed all night long, and they found out what it was is that like I had a stomach ache. They fed me applesauce. If all I had was rice cereal and milk growing up, up until that point, that would be really rough on their stomach. I was reading documents in here that there was very, very, very few documents from the Korean Welfare Services to them in this packet. I'm thinking like that's all they sent when you were forking a baby over to these people. There was a thing in there saying that, be careful what you feed them, introduce it. So they obviously didn't read that. They had no clue about kids. So I was like, okay. And all the other adoptees in the group, when I posted a few pictures in there, I was like, this is what I have. And they're like, we got a huge, file on us that was given to us. So I'm like, okay, well, where are all those papers? And then everything leads up until the last page in here one of the last pages in here is whenever they sent an application for me to become a naturalized citizen in 83. I checked all the dates, kind of seemed like it made sense because I think they started in 80. When was it? I'm looking here. It's like I feel like a paranoid freak, man, like looking at all this stuff. Oh, it was in 83. Oh, in 82, they, I guess, applied for it. And then in 83, actually became a naturalized citizen. But everything stopped up until that point. Like, you have saved, like, stupid receipts. They saved receipts, like bank deposits, all these stupid little papers and sent to me in a file. But everything stopped, and you were telling me that you don't have the naturalization certificate. First, he said it was burned, it was destroyed, he never had it, all these different things. So where is it? You took time to copy part of your file, and then you stopped at what do I want? You don't have anything else? And, my biggest fear is that they're going to die. No, my fear... Well, I know one day they're going to die, and my biggest fear is that they would have destroyed this, and I'll never get any information about myself, And so when I was reading through all this, and I just told Ryan the night before, like, I actually have something to know to look for, and it's not such a foreign thing to me, but I started going through my adoption file, and it wasn't as scary as before. And I was reading all this stuff, and there was things that don't really match up. It actually had my foster mom's name in there, but when I contacted the Korean, adoption agencies and welfare services, there's no record of the hospital. There's no record of me being born. There's no record of my foster mom per the name on there. There's no record of my adoption in the county I was supposed to be adopted in that year or surrounding years. But there's this one thing, and I posted on Facebook yesterday about me. It's a very, 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 very limited information about me. But what does it say? It basically said, they sent a letter on the 17th saying that I was coming to America. I'd left Korea then, and I guess just advising them that, like, hey, your kid's being shipped to you. But there was like a little write-up about how I was doing. I'm trying to find it so I can read it. There was like 8 little pages on half sheets of paper about what to feed me and what I've been eating, and like kind of like a how to raise your Asian baby. And then it talks about the condition of the health that I was in. And the one thing it said that, is that I could clasp hands and I couldn't speak, but I could say da, 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 da. So, obviously in any language, that kind of seems to be the first sound a child makes. But it said that I could sit up well and I could crawl. And I told Ryan last night when I got home, I was like, I was right. They lied. The one little thing that I knew about myself, they lied. And then I was like, it seemed so insignificant. Really, people were like, does that really matter? Well, yeah, because when it's the only thing that I know about myself and it's a lie, and I'm like, why? Like, what? Why would they lie? Are they just habitual liars? Like, I don't know why. And then as I was thinking about it last night, I was like, you know, I guess they wanted me to feel that I was like, they saved me, that they rescued me, that they did this heroic effort, and that Korea was bad because she was like, you have a bald spot on your head, and you had a bald spot on your head. You couldn't even sit up. You were so sick. And I was like, why? And she's like, well, because they just left you. They must have left you in your crib. And I guess you as a child you're thinking like, oh God, it was. But like Ryan said last night, Mindy, all three of your kids, and Rebel. He's like, my two kids, they all had a bald spot. That's normal. And then like my mom said, they must have left you on your back in a crib all day. The paper on there also said that I like sleeping on my tummy. So I'm like. And it said for all the visits from the welfare, work or the social welfare services, that they were like, she was happy. Like everything said I was a happy baby. So I'm like, well, I wasn't, didn't seem like it was bad. So I'm like, you lied about that. And the only thing I could think of was it because they wanted me to think that my life was horrible in Korea so that I wouldn't go back. So as I've been in these groups, I've gotten a little more confident, and I just assumed that everybody was like further in their journey and that I was just this freak coming around. It was so overwhelming, and it was great to get the support. It was like for the first time, I finally feel like people get me. They understand what it was like because I've known people who were adopted as I've grown up. More and more people are telling me on Facebook from me sharing my story that I was adopted too, and I know a lot of people have had crazy parents in their adoption story, but like for 98% of the people I've talked to, they have these heartwarming like stories that like their life is so much better and they are grateful for what they have and they were saved. And I know a few people who had crazy mothers, like neurotic mothers, like abusive mothers, but they had a dad that was amazing. These couple of people I know. So, but I'm like, I had nobody. Like I've had nobody in my life. And that's the biggest part of what I do is coaching is that like I don't have a limit on how many people I want to do this for, but like I get close to people and I find out what's wrong with people. And I found something out about a really dear friend the other day that made everything about this person make sense. Everything makes sense. And I want to go out and help this person fix this. And he was like, well, you're trying to fix me. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to fix you. Ryan said before, like, well, why are you always trying to fix me and fix people? I'm like, it's not that I'm trying to fix you. It's not that I'm trying to fix this person. It's not that this person that I'm trying to fix is more important than that person. But it's like, I just want to be that one person who does everything to fix this person so that they can live life to the fullest and that there's somebody who really cares about them enough to do that because I've never had that. I've never had anybody. I've had people who cheer me on. I've had people who support me. I've never had one person who was like, let me know what's wrong with you. Let me not just listen to you and say what I think you need to hear to get your mind off of it or cheer you up, but like really help you. Like that's things like there's so many things since I've been a coach and I share stuff. People open up to me and tell me some crazy things, which is great because I'm like, they trust me and they know I'm not going to judge them. They know that I'm going to support them. And I'm realizing that people tell me things that they've never told anybody. So I'm like, people are alone out there, like, and I'm not alone. And I want to help them because like I just think that everybody deserves to have one person in their life be devoted to help them because they care, not because when I help this person and if it all works out, it will change everything about his life and the way he interacts in his relationships, and he can live life without being held back. That's big. And that's what I want to be for everybody. It's not that these people are more important than my children or I'm trying to avoid myself. Like this is important. And I'm just sitting here. So I've been in the group and I had the guts the other day to actually ask. It's taken a while, but I asked, I'm like, does anybody out there have parents who are unsupportive of them finding out about their heritage or their journey? And it was scary because, like I said, everybody has had these great stories, and these parents are so grateful of their children, and they're so wonderful to them. It's just scary because, like, again, I don't want to feel like a freak. Like, it's sad to know that, like, why me? Like, why I always felt like a victim. I know I'm not now. I know that this is my story. It's made me a better person. You know, but like I just wanted to understand, like, you know, was I the only person? And a lot of people did. And, you know, the first person that responded said that she had a mom that actually encouraged her to find out about her heritage. But then she always wanted to go to Korea and go to these camps to find out. I didn't even know there were camps involved. And her mom would never let her. Said they didn't have enough money. But but then at the same time sent her to all these other camps that are expensive. So now as an adult she knows that that wasn't the truth. But, you know, I said, well, why didn't she support you? Why did she support you finding out about your heritage, but not about your birth parents? And she said, I think that, you know, what it came down to was that she was insecure of my love and that she thought that she could be replaced and she wanted to protect that. And it was like, what I realized right then, everything made sense, is that, you know, Ryan and I've had all these conversations. In the beginning, whenever my ex-husband and I divorced, you know, it was all new to him, and he asked, you know, he'd say, well, you know, the kids always come home talking about Ryan. I'm like, they come home talking about you here. I'm like, you don't know that. I said, the kids don't have any limit to love. You know, and there's always been this, you know, kind of conversation back and forth, you know, where Ryan was like, you know, the girls always going on about how great Larry is, and Larry's the exact opposite of him. And I'm like, they're not comparing the two. I'm like, there's just certain things that, you know, they like about him. It's not, there's nothing to be worried about. You know, and I realize now, because, you know, Ryan's like, I've done all this stuff with them. I protected them. He's helped raise my kids for almost 9 years. He's invested time in them because he's lived in the house and because he helped care for them. And there's things that, you know, when they get an attitude with him, it bothers him. But then, like I've always said, I'm like, it doesn't bother you, and like your kids do it. And it was like, this is a conversation we've had for years. And it was right at the same time that, you know, yesterday that actually we were talking about this, and it came up about how I'd asked this question in the group, and it just clicked. I was like, oh, and this is why personal development helps, because it helps you grow, it helps you become stronger. Talking to other people, getting feedback, you realize you're actually not alone. You realize that other people deal with it. You find out why, and it helps you put all things together. So this little, you know, not misunderstanding that, you know, has caused, you know, like questions, and I was like, you know, why is Ryan worried about this? You know, was it a jealousy thing? I didn't understand all this, like every fight and every conversation, things that happen in your life, there's always a purpose. It just may take a while, I realized, for you to understand, but like all clicked. I was like, I told him, I was like, I get it now. I was like, your ex was with a man for 2 years who lived in her house. He was raising your kids. You've praised this guy, saying like, you know, he did a good job. My kids liked him and I'm thankful for him. And I was like, you never cared. Like it never bothered you. And I was like, what? Like, I'm like, and now I'm realizing like, well, why does it bother you about my kids? I'm like, it shouldn't matter. Like, you should be more upset about your kids. But then I was like, I get it. I was like, you know, those are your children. No matter what you do, there's that unconditional love. They know it, you know it, and you don't have, there's no competition. I said, but if you don't have that unconditional love, that immediate bond, because it's family, which I never really understood until I had children, and now I have stepchildren. But, you know, and even having stepchildren helps me understand the difference between my kids and my stepchildren. I love my stepchildren, but there's not that, like, you know, I didn't raise them from day one. I didn't carry them. There's a difference. I am very invested in my stepchildren because I love my husband, because they're my stepchildren. I've known them since they were little. I care about them. I want what's best for them. And then really, me being a coach has helped me become a better stepmom too, because I don't see them as another woman who hates me child. I don't see them as the man I love offspring with another woman. I look at them just like I look at every other person out there in the world, is that I want to make a positive impact on their life, that no matter what happens in life, I want them to know that I didn't give up on them, that I cared about them, and that I want them to be good people just as much as I do my children or anybody else. There's no limit or reason why I help people. So it all makes sense. Like I told them, like, oh, so now, okay, now I understand why my parents, you know, questioned that, why they were so protective of their love. They didn't want me around anybody else. They guarded me. They protected me. So like I get that. And then I was like, you know, I've been making all these videos for this big training thing that we're doing for a team, and I've been talking about confidence. I've been talking about going in with a positive attitude. You know, I made these like 2 videos the last couple of days where I'm like, dude, people joining this training group, go in saying I'm going to annihilate all my goals and I'm going to get the most out of this training. Don't go in saying, oh, this could happen and I'm probably not going to do it, because you go in with a shitty attitude and then you get shitty results, and then you go in and say, see, I was right. That's what happened. And when, I see people who like are jealous of me, like there's people who I watch them, because like I really watch people and I do personal development, and I'm remember how I used to be. I watch these people who are threatened by the success I've had. And instead of focusing on their own business, they sit there and try to do things that are like crappy to me, and try to tear me down and try to cause problems and try to get a rise out of me. And half the time I don't even notice, because somebody else has to point it out, or somebody has to screenshot some picture or post that they made, and I'm like, because they're like, can you see it? It's directed at you. And I'm like, I didn't even notice, because I'm too busy worrying about what my goals are, is to help people, to focus on my business, to focus on healing myself. That like, sorry dude, like, you don't like me because I'm successful, because I'm a leader, because I'm able to do all these things. I'm able to make my marriage work. I'm able to do these things. But it's because I'm not worried about what anybody else is doing. I'm only worried about what my mission is, not selfishly, but what my mission is. So, I was, saying over the last week was that pay attention to what you're doing and go in not looking at the negative, because when you think about the negative, if somebody is like jealous of somebody's success and then spends all their time trying to tear them down so that they feel better, you know what? Your biggest fear that this person's going to be more successful is actually happening. They are going to be more successful than you. They are going to build better relationships than you. They are going to be happier than you. They are going to make more money than you. They are going to be prettier than you, because even if you are prettier on the outside, if you have an ugly heart and an ugly attitude, you're going to be ugly as sin. And you'll hear these things like, all the things that you're worried about, and you're trying to, tear this person down, you're basically giving them that they're more successful than you. And then that just makes you feel worse. And in the end, that person doesn't even know that this is bothering you. They just keep going on, because I don't care. Like when people send me stuff, I'm like, well, that was like a week ago that somebody posted that or said that about me. I get that they were trying to tear me down or attack me, but I'm like, I didn't even notice, because I'm still here doing what I need to do and keep trying to be awesome. And they're not because I'm more awesome, but because I do the things that help you be awesome. And I realized then too, is that, the last letter that my parents sent, they were like, we read these things and there's a statistic and they warned us that, Koreans are, adoptees or any adopted kids can be ungrateful. And they like quoted all these things that was a statistic. And, and like I said all along, I'm like, why? Like they read this document and they worried that this was going to happen, but like they didn't like they looked at it like this is an excuse that, oh, yep, you're exactly what they were talking about. You're a waste of our time. You're a waste of our money, a waste of all this stuff. But I'm like, they never thought like that's what they grabbed out of the article, was the statistic where the adoptee was screwed up or whatever. And then I had this aha moment with all this last night. Like I told Ryan, I'm like, this is exactly what I was telling about people. They go in saying they're going to fail, then they don't do the things they need to do, and they basically sabotage the situation. And then at the end, they can go out and say, it happened. And so I realized now, I'm like, you never took into consideration how the adoptee felt. You didn't read anything up on that about like how to make sure that they felt, they got acclimated to the new environment, the new everything. I mean, everything in Korea, the whole time difference, the environment, the language, the culture, the food, everything. Like they didn't realize how it was. But then I was like, oh yes, they're selfish. Selfish people live horrible lives. They are bitter and angry. And then I realized it was like, here they were, early to mid 30s. All their friends had pretty much had kids. They hadn't been around a lot of kids. And my mom's one of those people that like, if something's bothering her, she can't be around anybody like that, because it just makes her feel so bad. Like when I left home, she couldn't stand, or when I moved to Texas, she couldn't stand to be around her best friend Ruthie, because all she would do was talk about her grandson Wyatt, and it just broke her heart that her daughter took Haley away. And I'm like, really? Like, what kind of friend are you? Your friend can't talk about her grandson, that's Joyce, because that makes you upset? Like, what kind of shitty person are you? And like, I had shitty friends like that like, they only liked me if I was like below them, when I did something great, they were just shitty to me, and when I felt shitty, they actually tried to make me feel shittier, there's people in my wedding who did that. I'm like, really? Like, what kind of person are you? So I'm like, okay, I realized that they closed themselves off. They were bitter, they're angry, they always told the story that they were supposed to get this half black, half Italian baby, and then from some teenager, and then right when the baby was born, the teenager told the grandma, no, I'm not giving it up. So my mom was heartbroken. She's always the victim. But I realized too that they closed themselves off from the world. They're bitter, they're angry. So then when they got the adoption thing, they were just like, oh God, we've been through a lot of heartache, years and years of infertility, then waiting and waiting and waiting, lots of money, and every month the period would come and cry, like, all these poor, pitiful me. And so when they did, they were like they zeroed in on the what could happen, all these things, and then they made it happen. They made it happen because they were too busy selfishly looking on how to, protect themselves, and then they reacted in this ways to try to protect me, because it's like these Asian kids you get, they can turn on you any minute because they're ungrateful little bastards, and they created it. They perceived me as this person, as a small child, that they judged me because of what they had convinced himself would happen. And I remember whenever I got pregnant, I told my dad, he's like, it's gonna take a while to tell your mom. And then my mom found out like she couldn't talk about it. It was so upsetting. I'm sure it was upsetting because she couldn't have kids, and here this person who she thinks is broke her heart, is this bad person, was able to have a kid. And then whenever she finally came around, she was like, when your dad told me, I need to tell you something about Minnie, she's like, the first thing I said was, it can't be that she's pregnant because she's too selfish. And I've always felt selfish. They made me feel bad my whole entire life. They did. They've been like, you're so selfish. You're so self-centered. I'm like, why? I was always a nurturing, caring, giving kid. I'm like, wow, why am I selfish? But they held me in this little bubble, and I didn't understand why I'm selfish. I didn't understand, and that's why they'd be like, Minnie, we don't know where you get this from. You're this and this and this. And I'm like, but I'm not. I thought I was a good person. And still to this day, they never told me I'm a good person. When I had Haley, I could have been one of those moms that I know lots of that just dump their kid, leave their kids with their family to go out and party all the time, or to go here and there and don't pick up their kids, or I could have done all these things. Even when I was partying all this stuff, I always made sure that my kids were in bed, they were taken care of. Wasn't right, but I'm saying I've done the good things, and at the end of the day, my parents have they've written me letters. Haley told me the other day that they told her that I liked Emily more than her. And then they had Haley write me letters saying I'm a bad parent and asked to live with them. All these things. And I'm like, me being a coach, I've changed lives. I have done a total reverse of who I was. I am a good person. They still tear me down. I got a text from my mom today that was this crazy stuff, crazy stuff. And I'm just like, why can't they tell me I'm a good person? Why can everybody, in the United States, across the United States, thousands and thousands of, tens of thousands of people that I know cheer me on, and I didn't understand, but I'm like, they think that they're right. They have never been around anybody else. I told Ryan last time, they don't have any friends. People can't stand them. My mom has some friends that she grew up with when they were teenagers that she goes on this little weekend getaway once a year, but they don't have any friends. People hated my dad. My dad didn't have friends. He pissed people off everywhere he went. People don't like him as a business owner. I've heard it for years, even after I moved here to Texas. And I'm like, I was like, all they do all day long is sit there and think about their victims. When they talk about me, it's only them. They have no feedback. They have no perspective. They have nobody else telling them. They are probably pissed off because they're proud individuals. They think that why is Mindy talking about this? Why is she making me look bad? Well, you know what? I've had a lot of aha moments, and I realize now that I'm not alone, and that I'm not a bad person. They made me think that I was a bad person. And I thought I was because I didn't know anything different. I didn't know anything about it. The way they treated me was bad. The fact that my dad beat me and then lied to the court official. I never laid a hand on her. Well, then he'll tell the people I've been, married to or met, the only thing that got through to her was pain, and, all these, things that's not right. And I'm realizing now that they're never going to change, because I'm like, why can't they change? Why wouldn't they ever just say, I'm sorry. I get letter after letter that I'm just all this list of I'm a bad person, but then that I'm horrible because I won't let them in my life. When you tell me that I'm a shitty individual over and over and over again, why the hell would I want to be around you? When you tell my kids these things, my dad took a belt to Emily. Why would I ever want you to touch my kids or be anywhere near them? My kids don't even like them now that they know the whole story. When Haley, now, again, she was too young to realize that this was wrong, but now she was like, yeah, they told me that you liked Emily more than me. Who the fuck does that? Oh, because they didn't know what it was like to actually have birth children and raise them and have that unconditional love. There is no limit to my love for my 3 kids. Things change because of the person I am and the lifestyle I live, but I don't love one more than the other. I wouldn't save one's life more than the other. I don't want one to succeed more than the other. And I'm like, y'all are some fucked up people. You know, but I realize now they're never going to change. They're never going to say they're sorry. They're never going to see me as a good person because they stay in their little bubble. They're both bitter, angry, broken people with no life experience, no experience with children, and no different perspective. And they just sit there and they just feed each other back and forth. They're like, oh yeah, she's messed up. We wasted all this money on her, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it was a waste. And, you know, and they're still angry about it. Like, I talk about it openly. Like, you know, when I finally got my passport, I was going to, like, take a picture on the cruise ship, like, going like this to them and being vindictive. And I'm like, I don't, because I don't care. Like, once I got those papers and, like, you know, Ryan said, well, why don't you go and try to find out if they've done something shady with your adoption, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I really don't care. Like, anymore, I don't care to hurt them. Like, I don't care what they did. Like, I just want to find out about myself. And maybe I don't even need to find out about my heritage. Maybe I don't even need to find my birth mother, because I actually feel so much better being part of this group to know that somebody gets me. So lastly, I want to say, as I share my long story, and if anybody ever watches this, props to you, is for me, this is just a way to verbalize what I'm thinking so I can go back later on and, you know, see the progress. But this person in this group said this, and, you know, my mom always said, like, the one letter she sent 2 or 3 years ago was this long list of, I did this for you, we provided a roof over your head, clothing, this, we put you in gymnastics, da-da-da-da-da, and it was like, it's never enough. Like, it was this big, long list to convince me that they saved me, that they were good parents. And I'm like, I don't have to give my kids any list of why I'm a good parent. They know I love them. You know, I'll crawl in their ass when they do something, and I always explain to them, unlike my parents, this is why I feel this way. This is what I get them to see the perspective. So hopefully they understand that when I'm telling them these things, it's for their own well-being. I want them to know that I love them and why I do things. But this person said in this group, which, oh God, it just totally got to me, because I always thought, like, man, I am a bad person. My parents would guilt me, like, I am a bad person. Like, you know, because I would tell people, like, I wish I died. Like, I wish I got left in Korea. And people are like, don't say that. We're so glad you're here. Like, we're so glad that, you know, those people, I know you had a bad life, but we're so glad you're here. And like, then I was like, oh God, I do feel, I sound ungrateful. I'm like, and I know people were saying that to be encouraging and positive, and they didn't know what to say because nobody knows if you're adopted. But like, I always felt like I'm an ungrateful bitch, and maybe I am selfish. But he posted in here, I would like to share with you something that we explored in our workshop today in a sharing and writing session. I was telling the creative team that I often struggled as a child in balancing conflicting feelings, being grateful for having adopted and the void I had within my heart from being separated from my birth mother and siblings. I recalled a story from my childhood that resonated with me. I'll have to summarize it up to keep this post within limits. Essentially, the story goes, there was an ordinary-looking songbird that had the most beautiful song. One day, the songbird was captured by a man and placed in the most exquisite gold cage the size of a ballroom. The songbird no longer sang. The man lavished the songbird with the finest silks and set out food and water, yet no song filled the house. Eventually, the songbird died, even though it was given everything required for life except for freedom. In other versions, the songbird is set free. The story showed me it was okay to feel other things without feeling ungrateful. I shared from my childhood. It works particularly well because the story is already theatrical and carries a powerful message. Others may have stories that aren't as philosophical. When I arrived in my new home in Canada, the family cat, Mindy, which is funny, Mindy, was sleeping on the couch. I pointed at it and said, go Yang E, or I, or something, and picked up my backpack as if to leave. I suppose I didn't like the cats. I love them now. It's not particularly a profound story, but I would like to hear them all. And so he asked for people to share their story. So, like, I now realize that, like, I'm not alone. So the thing is, the things that you're struggling with, the things that you think that you're ashamed of, or you think that, you know, you're the only person out there, so you don't want to talk about it, share it, because I trust you. There's other people out there who are walking around about ready to spontaneously combust because they haven't been able to tell somebody. Tell them. Get it out there. Like, you know, I have to get out there. I have lots of work to do, but I had to get this out there now before I just combust. So I hope that something about my story gives you strength to find what you're looking for or what you're missing, or to understand the power of opening up to other people, finding a support group, digging into personal development. I really suggest picking up a book that helps you understand people, helps you understand how to deal with, you know, forgiving people and finding happiness. So I am on my trek to fill this void and find out who I am, and it's going to be long, it's going to be emotional. Thank you for anybody who pays attention.